You know, if you're in historian, Judge, and I know you are, there's a story about these chandeliers. I got 4 of them like this. It's not Santa Clara County history, though.
Okay, we'll maybe talk about it
later on.
All right. It's October 26, 1994. We're in the offices of Gerald Hansen on the 12th floor of what used to be called the Bank of America building, or the old Bank of America building in San Jose, down at the corner of First and Santa Clara Streets. And it's my privilege today to interview Gerald Hansen on his past and experiences as an attorney in Santa Clara County. Jerry, where were you born and where'd you grow
up? Born and raised in San Francisco in the Haight Ashbury district. And went to grammar school there, went to Ignatius, and then went into the service, the Naval Air Corps, and I was very proud of that. I got shipped down. I've been to 5 different universities or law schools, and Midlands, USC, Cal, Stanford, USF, you know. And they say, which is the best? And I say, it's like a golf course, you know, if you shoot a 72, I'll complain about it. I'll complain about the course. All those schools are fine.
I got you. Where did you graduate from?
I got my law degree from USF, and then wanted to practice in San Francisco, and I went up to Sacramento for a little bit, then to the U.S. Attorney's Office. And in 1952, my father-in-law got a heart attack, and I resigned and came down, sat behind his desk. You know what I mean? A few months he was back, and that was Dick Bersani. He was quite a guy.
Tell me about him. What was his background?
Well, Dick Bersani was a very forceful spokesman for the Italian community, we'll put it that way. In those days, unfortunately, if you were Portuguese, you had a Portuguese lawyer, and if you were a Vietnamese, we didn't have any, you had to have a Vietnamese lawyer. I mean, that nonsense, you know, but it's gone on. And it was partially a matter of speaking, because a lot of people that were immigrants didn't speak English, you know. But when you were in his office, if you could speak English, you spoke English, you know. So he was a very forceful guy. He won the Archbishop's Medal in Christian Apologetics at the University of Santa Clara in 1913. Incidentally, yeah, and that was the same day that the Navy was fooling around in San Francisco Bay with this little electrical device that we now call radar. Huh? Unbelievably. So I have the articles on it. Okay. Now there's history for you. Huh? There's history for you. That medal was a solid gold medal. It's a medal, solid gold. Huh? It's probably about 18, 20 carats. So my wife wears it occasionally, and the thing must weigh at least half a pound. You know.
Was Bersani one of these fellows that was always trying cases down at the courthouse, or was he mostly had an office practice?
Well, now I don't know for absolutely sure. No, he didn't have he tried a lot of lawsuits. He was that way, and he was in politics too. He was a good trial lawyer, and he did a lot of things for the city council too. No, he wasn't an office lawyer, although he had a big probate practice, you know.
Now, didn't the mafia try to get to him one time?
Yes, yeah.
Tell me about that.
This is a true story. This was witnessed by Frank Mitchell, who was the manager of the Bank of America down here, so, you know, honest bankers, you know what I mean. The story, Frank Mitchell saw it, at least he saw it down on the street, it happened there. It was in the 30s. My wife doesn't ever like me to refer to this story, but it shows you what a good guy this Bersani was. Huh? For some reason, the mafia in Chicago didn't like the way he was handling some case of some nature. So they sent a big hood out here to see him. At that time, he was on the 3rd floor of the old Bank of Italy building across the street. Now, the time of this when he first began to practice law, so I'd say it's around the early 20s. Huh? Bersani didn't take any guff from anybody. He just knocked that guy down and kicked him down 3 flights of stairs and kicked him across the sidewalk out into the gutter. Huh? And Frank Mitchell saw this and came over. What's going on? And Dick told him. Bersani never had any trouble with anybody. He was independent of that element. We never had any mafia out here anyway. Pretty believe it or not. And they sent him out. So he had no trouble with that.
Now, you said that that after he had his
I
heart
know that's a
attack-
horrible story to tell about a good, distinguished attorney, but you know, you got to be strong at times. Too,
Sure.
You know,
Well, now, you said that after he had his heart attack, that you sat at his desk for 3
Yeah.
months, then he recovered.
Oh yes, then I practiced law with him until he died. At 52 I came down here. He passed away in 59.
And then, when did your practice sort of pick up here?
Oh,
Right
well,
off
I could have
the
my
bat?
own practice when I came down here. And I had my own practice to a degree. Yes, I did. And I was helping him, and we're all in the family. You know what I mean? Put it everything together.
Now, you became a federal commissioner.
Yes.
Now, how did that happen? And what was the job?
I was the U.S. Commissioner. That's the equivalent of the present-day United States Magistrate. I used to like to say it's like being a municipal court judge, but in the federal system. That technically isn't correct, but it's as close to it as you can get. And essentially, if the FBI or some other federal agency wants an arrest warrant or a search warrant, they present the case to me, and I either issue it or don't issue it. Quite often, I didn't issue them, you know, for various reasons. Or then I arraign prisoners, set bail, conduct small hearings. I established the first. God, that's a story in and of itself. I established the first civilian court, criminal court, up at Moffett Field, and to bring the civilian concepts of justice into the military base and into the military mind was one of the most interesting experiences I have ever had. These military people, at times, they love their country and die for it, but they don't know what the Constitution means, and they care less. You know what I mean. Anyway, it's happened with other people too. But anyway, that's another story. I was the commissioner here. And why? Because I was in the U.S. Attorney's Office for only 7 months with Bob Peckham. And Peckham went on the bench, and so he had been the commissioner. And so I was the only guy around here who knew federal procedure, you know.
Well, now, were you in San Francisco in the federal attorney?
No. Well, yes, I was, but that was before I came down.
Yeah, but that was so you had a federal background.
Oh, yes.
That enabled you to have the experience.
Yes,
Now,
that's
were
right.
you in the Bank of America building here at that time?
Oh yes. Oh, in 1952, yes. We were down on the 5th floor.
Now, as I recall, we didn't have a federal court in
That's
San
right.
Jose at the time, so you were the
That's
federal presence.
That's right.
So, and they had to have somebody here locally, because otherwise to go off to San Francisco for every
That's right.
federal case would have been
Yeah,
insane.
that's right. That's right. That's essentially it, yes.
Now, how many cases would you have a week or a month or whatever?
Oh, well, it's only a part-time job, and I just took it as a little part-time job. And you didn't get paid much for it. Believe it or not, the law was set up in 1872, where if I issued a warrant of arrest or a search warrant, I got paid $4. And even in those days, maybe legal fees were only $50 an hour or something. That's fun. I'm not about to get some guy arrested or have somebody search for $4. You know what I mean? And I would often refuse to issue search warrants.
Now, if you refused, you didn't get paid.
Oh, that's right. Now, that was a great thing. Later on, when I was trying to get rid of the system, I was corresponding with Senator Tidings, who was the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, about all these things. And I got a letter from him. I wanted to know right away about something. I was trying a jury case at the time, and I came back and I dictated a letter to him about how I thought the system essentially was unconstitutional because of, and I can never remember the names of cases, but Toomey versus Ohio. It was the Ohio speed trap case where the judge had a direct pecuniary interest in the outcome of the case. And I said, the court said that's unconstitutional. And I said, that's at the trial stage. I'm at a pre-trial stage, but I see the principles are the same. And I dictated the letter, changed the spelling, made a few interlineations, signed it, and I never thought I'd hear anything more about it. And it was a photograph of it was published in the Congressional Record. And I misspelled Toomey, but it didn't make any difference. I didn't have a citation on it either, but I was in a rush, you know what I mean. And I told him what I thought about the whole thing. I said because I said if I were a cracker barrel commissioner in Georgia someplace, I might be swayed by the $4, but you know what I'm saying.
Well, now, did they change it after that?
Oh yes, yeah. I was working with him to get it changed. He just worked with me because I think it was interesting.
About what year was this?
That was in when I went out. About 72. Yeah. So the U.S. magistrate system came in, and then you were on a salary, and that turned out to be a big farce because the dear judges in San Francisco were very justifiably concerned with their own prerogatives, and they didn't want to have all these little magistrates doing all their work for them. You know what I mean? So the magistrates were getting the salary and doing no work. You know what I mean? And it was, in honesty, that's what happened. Huh? But now it legitimated itself pretty well. Yeah, good magistrates.
Now, during your practice, what was the most type of case that you handled most?
In trials, you mean? Yeah.
Or
everything. Well, mostly real estate related. I did my share of small personal injury and death cases, but soon I got doing an awful lot of condemnation work, and we settled quite a few cases, but most of the time I made my living showing how the state of California and various government agencies were a bunch of damn liars, particularly their appraisers. And I did condemnation work. And I tried 51, correct that, I'll say 40, it was 49 direct condemnation cases through jury verdict. That means all the way through jury verdict. And these weren't $10,000 cases. I mean, you know, they were a couple $100,000 cases.
And these are down the old courthouse in San Jose here.
Oh yeah, that's right, because that condemnation work sort of slacked off, you know, at the beginning of the evening. So,
Now you mentioned senators, and as I recall, you were involved with the campaign of Senator Kennedy.
Oh yes.
Could you tell us about that?
Oh yeah, that was interesting. I don't know, I just liked years ago. Well, I'll tell you a frank story, how I got into it. John McHenry, he was a friend of Harry Truman's, and he used to run the Farmers Union over here. And one night he got a hold of me, or one day he got a hold of me, he says, come on, I want you to come up to San Francisco and meet somebody. We went up there, and who's this? He says, and it turned out to be the senator from Massachusetts. I met him, and there were about 8 of us there. This was about a year before he ran. And I came back home, and it was about 1 o'clock by the time I got back home. And I was I was in the bedroom getting dressed, ready to go to bed, and Barbara said, who was that you went up to meet? And I explained to the guy, I think he doesn't say it, but I know he's going to run for president, going to try. And well, why couldn't he, and I said, but I don't think he'd make it. I said he was the perfect combination of an English professor, an economics professor, and a practical politician I have ever met. A high-class guy. And too bad he couldn't be president. And, well, why couldn't he? And I said, because he's a damn Catholic. And I'm a Catholic, big deal. Okay. And so, in those days, that was accepted. If you're a Catholic, I mean, you're not going to become president. You know what I mean? And that's just the way it was. So, by God, then you know what happened. Things changed around. And my wife asked me about 6 months later, what was the name of that guy again? You know what I mean? And then we went up. The campaign was forming, and he was nominated, and John got me up, and we were going to do it. Admiral Harley, who was the editor, he liked me. I was a Navy man, and he knew I was the U.S. Commissioner, and I think he thought I was the U.S. Commissioner to the United Nations or something. You know what I mean? He didn't know what that was. So he liked me, and I think that's why he wanted me to do the job, you know.
Well, now, you were chairman of his campaign?
Yes, county chairman of Kennedy's campaign, and I was very proud that I was instrumental. I got him to come to San Jose. He was never going to come to San Jose. He wasn't San Jose. But I said, Senator, we have 3/4 of a million people in our county, and San Francisco County only has 630. He said, you're bigger than San Francisco? I said, yes. We need people who are pliable and intelligent down here. I said, you got San Francisco with you pretty much already, friend, huh? You know? And so he came down here, There's a picture of it. That's okay. When, yeah.
Oh, we know.
Yeah. That's the skinny guy on the left. It's myself. Times have changed.
Well, now you also knew another famous man by the name of Bob Haldeman.
Yes.
And how'd you know him?
Well, I was sent into the Navy down at the University of Redlands. It was a Navy Marine Corps base primarily then. And my name is Hansen. He was Haldeman. When you're in the Navy, in officer programs, you go by this. We were together and stuck together. And only one guy ever came between us, and that was Hamilton. So Bob and I'm a kid out of a scholastic high school in San Francisco, and Bob was not, and we used to argue. We started having disagreements on everything, just about everything intellectual, and it got so bad that I said, look, what it comes down to, let's not argue anymore, just be friends. We're going to be stuck with each other. I said, what it comes down to, my friend, is that you believe that the end justifies the means. Well, I don't like to put it that way, this, that. And I won't go into it, he had certain religious beliefs I won't go into, but she never talked derogatorily about a man's religious beliefs. It got so bad, that was it. I loved his family. I thought Bob was great. I remember his wife, Jo, who was, she just posted his diary. And I got him into politics, unfortunately. That was probably the greatest disservice I did to my country. Anyway. I did it. I still have my notes about some dirty tricks that we accidentally pulled when I got him into politics. To tell you the truth, the dirty trick, I thought it was a clever thing. It wasn't his idea, it was mine. So I have it's just one of those things. But,
you mentioned, with regard to him, when you talked about you, what was your reaction when Watergate first came out?
Well, I went out and I picked up the paper in front of our house, and it said, it was a pretty big headline, Democratic National Committee headquarters at Watergate broken into by burglars and this and that and the other thing. And now who in the world would want to break into a national committee, huh? Except and so I showed my wife on it. They broke into headquarters. Holy mackerel! I said, I know who did that. She said, I said, Haldeman and Nixon. She says, oh, you're crazy. I said, that's the way these guys operate. I'm telling you. You know what I mean? And oh, you're crazy. He wouldn't have anything to do with that. Okay. So reminds me. I want to go back to Rossani. One thing about 2 weeks before he died. The 64,000 question was on radio then, or the TV, and was the most popular thing. And he said, "You damn fools! You believe that that's legitimate? You know what I mean?" And we see about 25 of us used to. You might recall Jim, down one of McHenry's, and everybody said he was a jerk to think that it was rigged and so forth. Then a couple of weeks after he died, it came out that it was rigged. You know what I mean? He had a tremendous insight. And once he told me, we were negotiating with a guy that was a promoter putting together the San Jose Inn out here. He says, Jerry, there's something funny about that promoter. I get a certain smell from him like he's done time, something funny. He says, check into it. In those days, you could get a hold of friendly cops, get into criminal records. Violation of privacy now, and not just as well. But I found out the guy just got out of San Juan for real estate fraud, huh? And there he is, right back. And so we told our client, and went right along with the whole darn thing, and protected our client. It was funny, but he had a sense about him, except he said I could never figure out a jury at a time. You know what I mean? I've been doing it for 30 years. I know less now about it than ever. That's probably about true. Any good lawyer will tell you that.
Might have been a sign of wisdom. Hey, speaking of another story, you had an experience down in Morgan Hill or Gilroy somewhere with Judge Claridge in the old days. Tell me about that.
Well, I've told you about some big cases I've lost. There was one big case I won. It was the condemnation of Holy Family Church here. I just got a verdict of later on in a year, so it was a big record verdict. I got a verdict. They wanted to pay us $200,000. I got a verdict for $693,000. And it had been a long case, and it was going to end on a Friday afternoon, and it did end. And I could tell that things were coming in pretty well. Norm Mattioni was the attorney for this great guy, but I invited the jury to come out to dinner and to phone their spouses and come on down on me, you know what I mean. And it was the Mainsail restaurant over there. And I said, phone up, and if your spouse can't come, I'll send taxis. I'll send you home in taxis. I mean, here, you know, we just got this verdict 3 or 4 weeks out of their life. And when my appraiser came into the restaurant, the jury stood up and applauded him. Huh? I mean, he won the case. I did my part. But and I told the jury, this is a big build up to Judge Claridge, but I told the jury, I said, no, look, you people have been great. If there's any time you need any legal advice or any legal assistance on anything, please just get a hold of me and I'll represent you as a matter of courtesy. That means for free, you know, I mean, within reason. Huh? Okay, that's fine. Well, oh God, what happens? Monday morning, I get a phone call from a young man who was on the jury, and he has a traffic offense in Gilroy, in front of that hotel down there. I forget what the heck it was, either going through a stop sign or parking in front or something. I forget what it was. But before Judge Claridge, he wanted to fight it. It was coming up on Thursday, and I promised that I'd represent him. And I said, well, you know, it's a $25 fine or something like that. I mean, can't, you know. And I said, well, you know, if I turn him down, he will justifiably for the rest of his life say, those lawyers, you know, they say this, but they'll never do it. That's the least I can do. So I go down to Judge Claridge's court. And as I say, I honestly forget about what the charge was. There was some cop there testifying that my man had, I think he was parked in the no parking place right in front of the hotel or something like that, but the cop evidently didn't see him do it. But so my client was coming back to get into the car, and the cop, who was a little kid, still went behind the years, testified that he went up and asked him, did you park this here? And I said, objection, Your Honor. I said, I'd like to take the officer forward here. And I asked the officer, I said, when you went up to him, did you suspect that he had committed this crime? Yes, I did. And I said, what was the next thing you said to him? Well, I asked him about it. Did you park this here? I said, did you advise him of any of his constitutional rights? And he goes, huh, what do you mean? Huh? And I said, Your Honor, I move to strike any testimony, you know, coming from my defendant on the grounds of, you know, given in violation of his Miranda rights and so forth and so on. And of course, the cop doesn't care for this. And Judge Claridge, who was a good man, a good lawyer, and so forth, an honest guy.
And a mutual friend, I might add, yeah.
Oh, he's a big buddy of yours?
Well, not big buddy, but we're good friends. Yeah,
oh,
just
good.
like you are. We're friends.
Well, okay, yeah. I mean, I don't see him very often at all, but what's this? What's this? And he turns to the district attorney. They had a big case. The district attorney down there on this thing. And what do you say about this? And the district attorney, the court of record, you know, and he said, well, Your Honor, I must say that Mr. Hansen is right in this, and his testimony should not be received. Claridge stands up, he says, you guys come in chambers right now. So, and with his flowing robes and so forth and so on. And he used to be a great halfback at the University of Santa Clara, you know, and he was a tough guy. He was a good lawyer, good man, honest, good judge, but I tell this story, he was rough around the edges of a few things. Kind of like on a couple of occasions, like we won't go into, okay. But a very distinguished member of the bar was knocked through a wall by him once, you know. And this is when they were in college, okay, in law school together. And so he gets in, now, Jerry, what's this stuff about this, you know, all that constitutional law and all that stuff, that's all Supreme Court stuff. That doesn't apply down here in my little court. And I said, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I think that your court has the greatest contact with human beings with reference to their constitutional rights than any, and it does apply. And the district attorney says, yes, that's right, Your Honor. Jerry says, you get out of this court. And if you ever come into my court again, and pull any of this stuff, I'm going to throw you right out. And I said, okay, Judge, that's a deal. That's okay. And I love him. I mean, he's a great guy. You know what I mean? You had to love John Clarence, you know, and that's honestly what happened. The DA was going like this. So,
speaking of other characters, we both have a mutual friend of a guy who's a terrific lawyer, but a big character by the name of Henry Mariani.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about Henry.
Henry came down here after I did, but like most young lawyers, they started doing a lot of criminal work, sometimes volunteer, sometimes for a little pay. And anyway, so he was appointed on a case, and I don't know the nature of the case, but there was a gun involved in it. And Henry, I mean, Henry's guy was guiltier than anything, but Henry wanted to, of course, make sure that he was convicted only of that. You know what I mean? People understand why. How can you defend a man you know is guilty? Well, just make sure he gets convicted of that. And the DA had him overcharged a little bit, you know. So anyway, he went ahead and was defending him, and he was dead. I mean, the evidence came in, and I mean, Henry knew he was dead. So as usual, when you know you're dead, you attack the district attorney, right? Isn't that the second rule of criminal law? You know. Anyway, so he was critical of the DA for calling his client by all of his aliases, Chicago Pete and Tommy Toledo and everything. And he says, the DA is so unfair, you should just let this man go free and so forth. And he says, for instance, he said, there's a gun in evidence that does have something to do with this case. And he said, but then the district attorney brought into this courtroom and evidently just had marked for identification, not in evidence, another gun. And he said, that gun has, it was just brought in here to prejudice you, to make you think that this guy's full of, has an arsenal of everything. And he said, that gun has absolutely nothing to do with that case. I know that, the judge knows that. And he said, Mr. Clerk, would you give me that gun that doesn't have anything to do with the case? And the clerk reached over and picked up one of the guns and gave it to him. And he says, see? He says, even the clerk knows this gun doesn't have anything to do with the case. Oh, the jury roared and laughed, and in 5 minutes came back and convicted him. Oh,
now there's another attorney that has passed away these many years, but was just a legend in his own time by the name of John Burnett.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about him.
John Burnett was a lawyer's lawyer. He loved a point of law more than the case, and he would just love a good point of law, and he was just that way. He was sort of full of delay and so forth, and a lot of things, and he was, but he would go on and tell a story, a true story about how he defended a woman officer in the old colonial courthouse in Noumea, New Caledonia, and with great and all that, she was accused of conduct unbecoming an officer and a gentleman. And he told that whole story and described everything in that courtroom and everything went on. And, it was funny. She was a an Army nurse, and pardon the expression, she had a case of diarrhea, and she had to go to the latrine situation, and the commanding officer had said, this latrine for men only, and this latrine way over here for women. And she went by the guard, and she got prosecuted, and it was a military court-martial, and he had to take off his Navy insignia. This was an Army court-martial, and he maintained he didn't have to do it because he was a member of the California Supreme Court bar. And anyway, so he told the court, he said, if you convict her, you're going to become the laughing stock of the United States. You're going to try to get women nurses into the United States Army. And he was so right, you know what I mean. And they went ahead and convicted her anyway. He took an appeal and was thrown out. You know, and but he was a lawyer's lawyer. He just was. And but he handled some big cases
over the years. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Let me ask you this now. It's 1994. You started in 1952. Let's first talk about the county. How would you compare Santa Clara County as such now to 1952?
Well, obviously, it has changed rapidly with mechanization, transportation, buildings, technology, and mainly demographics and economics. That's one thing people don't they don't grasp. Geographically, when I came down here to this intersection in 1952, there were nice, well-dressed people walking around, and they were dressed up to come downtown, and there was Blum's department store and the Bon Ton hat shop and all these things, and the courthouse was down there, and everybody dressed nicely, and they had their automobiles coming down. Now, with redevelopment, they came in, for instance, and I don't mean to be political, but there was a certain governor of the state of California, a conservative gentleman, who established, he wanted to get everybody out of the state institutions, and he established halfway houses down here, all around this downtown area, where these poor guys, you know, came. And then our great planners that we have in this area, they changed this intersection here. There was a lovely place into the hub of transportation, as they called it, which is a nice way of saying this is where everybody is going to come that can't afford an automobile. Oh. And I'm sorry, but that's what happened. You know what I mean? So you get the poor derelicts, and if you don't think they weren't nuts here, still, about 4 years ago on a Sunday morning, I came down here to pick up an appraiser, not a condemnation case. It was in that case that you began, okay, down there. And no working people down here, just the local nuts. And I'll tell you, you think you were in the courtyard and where they flew over the cuckoo nest. It was sad, you know. And that's why people don't like to come downtown. That has happened. And then, well, that's just what's happened here. The demographics have changed greatly. That's the main thing. Typically, people in those days were people that owned a 40-acre prune farm, prune range, and maybe 5 or 6 other people and their families who worked on it, or this or that, demographically. Now, everybody works for a big company. They've got a house that's in joint tenancy, and they're paying it off, and they've got a joint tenancy bank account, no insurance, and a lot of bills. Huh? And they don't need lawyers. No, really, I mean, that's it. Big companies do, you know. So that has really changed.
What about the courts? How would you compare the Santa Clara County courts now with 52?
Oh, with 52?
Yeah.
Well, of course, we had 3 judges here when I came down here, and the courts here and the judges of those courts, and I'm not going to say present company accepted judge, they, very honestly, they are the most competent, honest, ethical, outstanding men you could ever imagine. And I really mean that. They are, and I've tried cases in 12 or so counties around here. I only ran into one judge that I thought he was crooked, period. Because he'd been for a good cause for the county, because the county was going to have to pay a lot of money if I won, you know what I mean? So he'd do anything for that. And then later on, another judge involved. But anyway, here in this county, they're great, absolutely great. I've only had one. Well, they just are. Every one of them. Now we've got how many? 3 billion judges, huh? No, we've got 38. What is it? 42? Don't tell me. I don't want to know.
Okay, I won't.
Well, how many is it? Do you know?
I think it's 42.
Yeah. Okay. 42. And they're all really. They're just. You know, you're going to get a square, honest shake from, not a shake, but a square, honest attempt to analyze the case and come to a lawful decision. And you never, like there was one Judge Folk, I thought of him. I used to say, that man, I'd put my mother's life in his hands.
Was it
John Folk, yeah, I just did. And he'd bully against me on something, and I used to have the bad habit of saying, Your Honor, in deference to His Honor's ruling, I want to make sure I don't violate it in the future, and therefore could the court give me any guidance as to why he ruled this way? And he would look down at me and he'd say, proceed, Mr. Hansen. Oh, that was funny.
Did you have an experience with a bank robber?
Oh yeah, the commissioner thing, yeah.
Did you? We already talked about that, maybe.
No, here, no, I mentioned it earlier today. Years ago, was, yeah, way a long time ago. I won't mention any names of people involved, but there was everybody has the right to privacy, even a guy convicted of murder and bank robbery after a while. This guy convicted of murder, I was involved in the estate aspect of the case. He was trying to sell the estate properties to take care of the children of the decedent. His wife was accused of murder, and so was a son of his, the decedent. He was convicted. Henry Mariani was his attorney, and he was set up for life, and about 8 years later, Henry came around, and because I knew something about the case, and because I was the commissioner, he wanted me to write a letter to the parole board to let the guy out. And I said, no way, Henry. I said, I don't write letters like that unless I really know so-and-so, and I don't know him. I'll write a letter saying that the guy who's going to take charge of him is a fine, good man. He was a great guy, nice guy, honest, everything, really well. So I wrote the letter just on that limited basis, and he got out. I heard that, and about 3 or 4 weeks after that, I heard the FBI had two prisoners and I said, well, don't bring them up here. Just I use the front court down in jail. I'll raid them down there. And who do they bring in but this guy? Huh?
What was he charged with?
Robbery of a federally insured institution, a bank in Coos Bay, Oregon. And to show you the brilliance of this clown, he went in there and used surgical gloves, not to leave any fingerprints. Came outside the bank, took off the surgical gloves and threw them away, and the cops just went over and picked up the surgical gloves and a full set of fingerprints, and they nailed this guy within about 6 hours, you know what I mean. And I gave a certain ethnic description of that story then that would seemingly be politically unpopular now.
Okay.
But I like ethnic stories. I'm Irish, and I like to talk about how the Irish drink too much, fight too much, and all this and that, you know, but it's fun.
Now, at the outset, you mentioned about those dirigibles.
Yeah.
You have.
Yeah, these are rugby-shaped footballs. They are chandeliers. There are 4 of them. The camera lady is, or camera person, pardon me, is turning the camera toward the Santa Clara one. They're rugby-shaped footballs made in 1912 or 1915. They're made out of true Venetian glass by Venetian craftsmen here in the United States. And these hung for many years in a bar in San Francisco called, a famous sports bar called Newman's College Inn on Powell Street, which bar was taken down to make way for the 1932 day and night branch of the Bank of America. I was born in San Francisco, and I remember my uncle was a bank officer then. The 4 of these got into the hands of a tailor, a guy that ran a clothing store, who was a good friend of my father-in-law's. And he got these things and he gave them to Dick Bersani for Dick, who was building a new home. He started building a new home. Beautiful house. It's on Morse and Emery Street now. It still is beautiful. It started in 1932, the depths of the Depression, on Labor Day with union labor. And they showed him the lineup and so on. He was going to use these downstairs in his big social room, but he never did use them. I had one for Stanford, one for California, one for St. Mary's, in addition to the Santa Clara one. And he never used them. Years later, I came across them with Dick. We were downstairs one day, and he explained, he gave them to me, and they were filthy and everything and damaged, and I fixed them up.
They're beautiful.
And, they are. The man who used to do the glass work for the church around here, he said he'd never seen anything as well done, you know. So,
Do you have a letter here from J. Edgar Hoover?
yes.
How'd you get that?
When I was, quote, going, well, when they were changing the system over and I was going out of office, Bill Kidwell, the head of the FBI, came to me. He was a big, tall dude, perfect gentleman, as most of those FBI guys are. And as a nice surprise to me, he gave me this letter that I've hanged from J. Edgar Hoover to me about how I've been such a great help and support to the government, and this, that, and the other thing, and so forth. And I did say to him, and it's a free country now, I know, you know, I knew what sort of a gentleman J. Edgar Hoover was. He was a fine cop, but as I said to him, I said, Bill, I appreciate this, I read it. I mean, even though it comes from the greatest American living fascist. I mean, we all knew what J. Edgar Hoover was. That when you were in his presence, if you were in the FBI, you had to face him at all times. You couldn't look any other way. I mean, oh yes, this guy was psychotic that way. Oh yeah, and all these guys knew it. They wouldn't dare let it be known or anything like that. He was a heck of a good cop. That guy they shot as Dillinger wasn't Dillinger, I'll tell you that. There's a good book on it. They had different color eyes. Dillinger had one color eyes and that corpse had another, you know.
Wow.
So that's another, but you know.
I want to ask you one final question.
Yeah.
You had an appeal, and we've talked about it before. You started off the language in your appeal with something. Tell me about that.
Oh yeah, it was a kick. That's the first appeal I ever took. The presiding judge, supposedly a big, super smart guy, he ruled against me. I brought suit against the title company on a check made payable to my client. And he ruled against me on 3 separate grounds that the gal who forged his name was the agent of my client. And I took it up on appeal and reversed him on all 3 grounds there. And the order judgment entered for my client. And in my appellate brief, I started out, you know, trying to get a little sympathy, you know, besides pointing out the proper facts of law. I started out by saying that the appellant, Domenico Cignetti, a dishwasher, that I mentioned. And when the opinion came down, I won. The guy that wrote the opinion was Preston Devine, and he knew me because I used to have my shopping news route dropped near his house and dropped my papers in his alley. He knew who I was. And so when he wrote the opinion, and he started it out by saying, appellant Domenico Cignetti, a dishwasher, who happened to have accumulated $30,000 for investment purposes.
Hey Jerry,
Okay,
thank you very much.
very good.
We really appreciate it,
Okay,
and I've learned a lot, and I hope that the viewers enjoy this.
Yeah, it's been fun practicing law, and I intend to keep it up. You know, if
Good
you
for
quit
you.
practicing law, you can't deduct anything. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
Great way to conclude.
Okay, bye.